I was one of the top 250 players worldwide and top 50 players of Hurricane worldwide in the Mecha Break of Beta. I have hundreds and hundreds of hours in the different betas of the game, and in this video I want to explain to you what would be the best strikers for beginners. Before we do this, let's make a few things clear. First of all, this tier list. I am not here to tell you that this striker is bad or good. I actually believe that this striker in the game as a role is useful. No, what this is to explain from my experience, from my perspective, which strikers are easier to learn, which are hard to master, and which you would probably have a lot of fun with when you were a player. Now with that said, this second part, please keep in mind that it is best if you are more either in the training mode before you come into the game, or now that all starter strikers are locked, like from the end though, head combo is internal and new strikers. You can just jump into a game and try it out for yourself. Right? You don't have to accumulate any points for those strikers anymore, and you don't have to pay money or anything. Play. But if you want to do a little bit of extra research, you can use the right price. So with that said, let's jump to the first one. The first striker we want to take a look at is Falcon. Falcon is one of the fastest strikers on the battlefield, quite weak in comparison to, let's say, some other strikers who have more shields, more health. You are what I would call a hit-and-run striker. You can do quite a bit of damage when you are targeting weak enemies, but you have to get out of the situation before it becomes problematic for you, because if you are getting caught, you don't have a lot of defensive capabilities and you would die relatively quickly. So hit and run is definitely the tactic for you. But even though Falcon is technically one of the tutorial strikers, Falcon is definitely one of the tougher strikers, especially for beginners. Why? Well, it's not because they die very quickly, it's because the energy management. Falcon is eating up so much energy and has a lot of maneuverability tricks other strikers do not have, like the slow descent or the death spiral, right? Those are abilities you don't really see on other strikers, and to master those, but also keep an eye out for your energy, is really problematic, and a lot of people are struggling with it, and that means you will never fully use Falcon to its full extent and makes Falcon feel so weak. But let me assure you, Falcon is strong, it just needs a little bit of extra time to get used to. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend Falcon for beginners, because, as I said, you are trying to learn all the systems. You are trying to learn the striker you are playing with. And then you have to also take an extra look at your energy management. And you will run into a lot of situations where you are going in, you think you have the upper hand, and then you're realizing, oh shoot, I have used up my energy when I was going in. Now I'm stuck here, cannot really move, and I'm getting destroyed, which is becoming very quickly frustrated. But if you want to learn that, well, Falcon has a very high ceiling and is still considered one of the best strikers out there. With that said, let's talk about, funny enough, another very energy-hungry striker, and that is Panther. Panther is a melee fighter through and through. That means you have no range attacks, but you have quite a bit of abilities to get relatively quickly to the enemy. You also have quite a bit of defensive capabilities. You have multiple shields, and that's what you have to learn with Panther. When can you switch to offensive mode, and when do you have to switch to defense mode and get the hell out of there and wait for the next target. One of the strongest abilities of Panther is definitely the lance attack, which you can charge into enemies. This will do direct damage to their health through the shield, as every melee attack does, but also very important, you move the target. That means if you can caught one of the weaker strikers and you can move them out of the protection of the allies, you will put them in a very disadvantaged position, not just for Panther, because Panther is really strong in melee, but also for your team to just gank the hell out of that striker. But with that said, if you thought Falcon is energy hungry, well, Panther is on another level. So much so even that Panther has an ability which is not just regenerating its shields, but is also giving a little bit of energy back. So you have to manage your energy consumption, but you also have to manage the cooldown of that ability to get energy back whenever you need to, but then you also have to think, wait, maybe I need this more for my shields than I actually need that right now for my energy. Maybe I should wait. So there's a lot of consideration you have to do on a moment-to-moment basis. And as I said, Panther, like Falcon, very high ceiling, not necessarily for the new players. And I would say you might want to take a look at some of the other characters first before you are jumping into Panther. But Panther, the moment you realize how to play Panther and you manage all those aspects, very strong, very feared on the battlefield. Number 3, Alness, the tutorial hero striker mech. And I see a lot of people always look at Alness and go, oh, well, you can't really do anything special, right? It's just striker which can do everything. Yes, and that is the strongest part of Alness, where other strikers have definitely weak spots and situations you never want to be in. Alness doesn't really have that. You are a range fighter. You can do burst. You're a melee fighter. You can be very defensive. You even have an extra life, which is regenerating every 3 minutes. Also very important, with patch 1.0, they will boost Alness without armor, and they give the Alness more melee damage, more range damage, and make them stronger in that. So that's another huge buff for Alness. But as I said, there is no weakness to Alness. You are kind of beefy, and there's never a situation where you think, oh no, I have a melee fighter on my ass. Oh no, there is a range fighter shooting at me from a far distance. You can deal with that. Again, and you're also quite tanky. So there isn't something you really excel at with Alness, but there isn't also anything where you go, oh, I don't want to be in that situation. So Alness is, for a reason, the hero/tutorial striker in Mecha Break, because it is easy to learn. There are a few tricks you have to master, like it is with every striker, but you will never be in the situation where you think, oh, this is bad, right? And energy management is relatively easy with Alness. So I highly recommend Alness for beginners because the systems are easy to master. You have to swap between a lot of weapons and support items, which again, sometimes a little bit much for a lot of people. But if you still want to have an agile striker which can do range and melee attacks, Alness for a beginner is definitely for you. Speaking about a very popular beginner striker, let's talk about Tricera. Funny enough, I made an extra video a few months ago called How to Kill a God, and that thing is still very important because Tricera is a monster. Tanky as hell, because, well, you are a tank, you have tons of shields, tons of health, and you can also heal yourself. You are the only non-healer striker in the game who can actually heal itself, which makes you very powerful. And you can even heal other players around you. So that means you are sitting pretty on a spot which you have to hold. You have tons of firepower, and you are hard to kill, and you can support your other teammates. Like, there isn't much Tricera has a problem with. Of course, there are a few things like snipers who have a much longer range than Tricera has, or some of the more control the battlefield strikers, which we will definitely cover here in the video in just a few. But to keep that in mind, Tricera, especially for beginners, Tricera is considered a pub stomper. Right? You just want to sit pretty somewhere, you don't really want to move a lot, and you just want to go, brr, well, this is your striker. Like, I still highly recommend Tricera for new players, and even later on, Tricera definitely excels in a lot of team fights. Now, we have to see how that goes with 1.0 and some of the changes they made to the battlefield control strikers, but I would say Tricera is still very, very strong. Narokami, the quote-unquote light sniper. So don't get confused whenever you see somebody say, oh, this is a light, medium, or heavy, or super heavy striker. That doesn't refer to the firepower. That refers to the health and the shields. So just because Narokami is a light sniper, Narokami is actually the striker with the highest burst potential in the game and is your typical sniper. Right, you're trying to go on high positions and positions where you can be left alone, but you can still see the battlefield. So whenever an enemy is coming in, you can run away very quickly because, well, you are not made to do a 1-versus-1 fight, at least not in close quarter combat, and definitely not a melee range. So you want to escape, and you have quite a bit of abilities to do so. You can make yourself invisible. You can use now a grappling hook. Well, the grappling hook was always there, but they changed it now that you can actually shoot it at an enemy. You will stun the enemy, do a flip over them, and while you're doing that, you're going invisible. So this is another way now for Narokami to disappear. Going invisible is one of the only perks Narokami has to just get the hell out of a bad position. But Narokami's strength is the firepower, because your shots go through shields. It's one of the very few range attacks who can actually do that. And you can also put down clones. Now, the clones are there to also confuse the enemy, of course, but they do a portion of your damage. I think if they haven't changed it, it's still 25% extra damage per clone. And that is a lot of extra damage you would do, especially if you were charging up your shots, which you should definitely do. Don't forget that. Charge them up. And then you will shoot at the same time. And it is huge damage. But that's your strength and also your greatest weakness. You want to be alone. You want to snipe. And you want to make sure that nobody is getting close to you. Because if they do, you have a problem. Oh, and one thing, don't forget, Falcon and Sarin have both abilities which will make you visible, even if you are invisible. So make sure that they are not getting too close to you. But if you love snipers and you just want to sit somewhere pretty and snipe people, then Narokami is definitely your choice. You just have to learn to not get caught. Next, Lumina, the first support striker in the game, and definitely the real healer. If you want somebody who's just zip-zapping over the battlefield with no energy issues whatsoever and being super fast, and most strikers cannot keep up with you while you are shooting your drones left and right to heal your players or your other teammates, then that is your striker. And the cool part about the drones are they're HOTS. They're healings over time, so you really just shoot the drones at your team players, you heal them, and then you are already off to the next player. You don't have to wait around because the healing is still going on. Of course, what will happen quite a bit when people realize, oh, I'm getting healed, is that they are jumping immediately into the fight again, even though they are still weak. But that's not your problem. You cannot really do anything about that. A thing I have to mention, though, Lumina has basically 0 damage. Yes, you can change to corruption form, and then your drones will do damage, and you have an AoE field which can do damage. But there is a reason why there is a meme in the Mecha Break community, which means that if you got defeated by Lumina in 1-versus-1, please deinstall the game. Like, seriously, please deinstall it. Lumina does basically 0 damage. It takes so long. I did some tests months ago to check like how long it even would take for Lumina to take down a Falcon, and it was 30 seconds with everything enabled, and that was just Falcon, one of the weakest strikers in the game when it comes to health. And yeah, don't waste your time with that. You want to zip zap over the battlefield and heal to your heart's content and support your team with buffs. Now, let's talk about Valkcon, another melee fighter. Valkcon is what I would call the brawler. The spin to win, because, well, he has a big battle axe and he can do a whirlwind attack, so spin to win actually fits. But you have quite a bit of defensive capabilities, you're quite beefy, so you can just jump in the thick of it, and you are not bad in 1 versus 1, but your strength is definitely in team fights when you can do your spinning attack and you can hurt as much enemies as possible. And don't forget, as always, your melee attacks are going directly through the shields and attacking the health of the enemy. Now, with that said, Valkcon does have a range attack on Howitzer, and with that Howitzer, you can actually dish out quite a bit of damage. I see a lot of people underestimate the damage which can be done through the Howitzer, and they will pay dearly for that. Now, the cooldown is relatively high on the Howitzer, but again, the damage speaks for itself. Now, there is one ability I have to talk about, and that's basically the Valkcon Arena, or the energy field you can pop up. And what that does is it pops up a cube, and inside the cube, they are now spinning axes, which are attacking automatically enemies. And far more important, they are trapped with you there. Nothing gets out, nothing gets in. That is already a frightening prospect for everyone who is trapped in there with you. But even more important, and this is why this ability is so powerful and why Valkcon is considered one of the strongest mechas in the game, is because nothing gets in. So that means you are popping this, right? You are alone in there, and you can just take over a point. You can capture something, and nobody can stop you. Nobody can do damage to you. Now, with that said, most of the capturing of a point takes longer than the arena lasts, so you have to manage that a bit. But it is very powerful, and it can win a lot of the team fights over objectives for you and your team. So if you're looking for a melee fighter who can be in some not so great positions sometimes, still able to defend itself on longer range and does tons of melee damage, then Valkcon is definitely the striker for you. And I would say one of the best starter melee strikers you can get. Now, last but certainly not least, is a new striker, and that is Sarin. Sarin is another support striker in the game, and interestingly enough, even though Sarin is designated as a support, you have no healing capabilities, you have no shields, you have nothing really to support your team. And if you're like, wait, why is this designated as a support then? Because you are controlling the battlefield. You will, if you are playing Sarin right, control the battlefield and change the battlefield to something you want and which is beneficial to your team. So first things first, your attacks, your left click, can go through walls and objects. And yes, one of your abilities is a wall hack. So you can see actually where the enemy is, and you can still shoot at them through the wall while they can do nothing. Another very important ability is the orbital strike, which is the right click. And when you are holding it down, you are not targeting a striker anymore. You are actually targeting something on the ground. And then after some, I think 2 seconds, an orbital strike will land on that position and will create a huge expanding explosion, which is doing tons of damage to the enemy if they are staying in that explosion. So this is a counter directly to, let's say, Tricera or some of the other strikers who are just mostly sitting around. And keep in mind, though, the orbital strike fully charged can also do friendly fire. So be careful about that. It's not as bad as the enemy damage they will get, but it's still friendly fire. And another ability, and that's kind of crazy, is the grappling hook. And this is definitely one of the defining abilities for Sarin. And the grappling hook allows you to attach to an enemy. When you do that, it will change the friendly fire designation of the strikers. So that means enemies become friends and friends become enemies, which is kind of crazy when you think about that. Yes, there is now friendly fire in the game if you are getting hit by the hook. So be careful about that. But even more important, you can use the hook to capture points. You can target mission objectives with the hook from afar and take them. Take them over. Payload, capture and hold points. You can just take them over and the enemy doesn't necessarily see that. So that is a huge boon and makes you very powerful in controlling the battlefield. Now I will say, Sarin is definitely not one of the strikers I would recommend at the beginning, because not only do you need to know how the striker works, you need battlefield awareness, you have to know how the maps work, you are still kind of struggling with learning the game, you don't have a lot of escape abilities, all things considered. Like Sarin will have a very high ceiling and will definitely not be the striker I would recommend for beginners. But check them out and see if you like them. With that said, we are at the end of part 1. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like. And also, if you're new to the channel, you want to see more Mecha Break videos and also live streams I'm doing here, then you might want to subscribe. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe. Bye-bye.